to Two Homers and a Realist. It is very disappointing end of the evening for the Sooners after a loss to Tennessee, 25-15. I'm Steve. I'm a homer. I'm going to try to be, but it's probably not going to go very well.
Jay.
Mike. Connor.
Lucas.
Guys, that was just, I don't know. We have an aspect of our team that is absolutely not SEC ready, and that's the offense. And it is as bad as, in ways, as we feared it might be. And then in other ways, it's kind of worse because it's so inept. We're going to talk about injuries. We're going to talk about player and lack of execution. We're going to talk about the coaching and all of that. But we're also going to talk about defense, and defense was phenomenal. Defense was absolutely stellar. So that's a bright light. But this is something that's going to take the, I don't know, it's a different direction for the entire, for the expectation of the team. But before we get to that, let's talk about our great sponsor, Little Debbie Snap Cakes. I tell you what, this is one of those games where you just can't put enough Little Debbie in me to maybe make it feel better, because it's bad, Little Debbie, and I need
I'm
some
going to
help.
put all of the Little Debbie in
I need to I'm going to make some mistakes with Little Debbie tonight.
They're probably in a good mood because they're based out of Tennessee.
I knew it.
Collegedale, Tennessee.
I knew
So
it.
they're probably pretty happy.
Trojan horse.
Yep.
We should have been eating all those Little Debbies. Well, they're just so delicious. We thank them for their sponsorship. They're the title sponsor of the post-game pod. Thank you, Little Debbie, for all your support, and we're going to need it badly because, boy, we're in a bad way. It's one of those games that just changes the trajectory of where you expect your team to go, and the season is literally still in front of us, but hope has got to be really dim because of what we saw on offense tonight. I guess you could take a little bit of hope out of the fact that we got a replacement right before half, but really for the second half and at quarterback. But I think there's deeper issues as well. So what's your initial impressions? What do you want to talk about? Give us something to start this therapy session.
Let's go from the main realist. What do you got?
Let's go with the realism. I was looking forward to Seth Luttrell being the
got one of the
offensive coordinator.
Tennessee private planes getting out of town here.
Jerks. I was looking forward to Seth Luttrell taking over for Jeff Lebby coming into this year. I even mentioned Seth Luttrell before the Lebby hire when Brent got hired as a candidate that I really wanted to look at.
And we all liked the hire.
Because he had been a Leach guy. He had run his own offense at Arizona. He'd run it at North Texas, I think North Carolina under Mac Brown. All successful offenses. As a head coach, he was successful in taking North Texas to, I think, like 5 straight bowl games or something when they had been in the dumps before. So that was something to really look forward to. I did not expect him to be terrible at his job, which is what it seems to be. I liked a little bit last week when he started running some wide receiver screens and opened up the playbook a little bit more. We still weren't throwing downfield, but I thought that was something to come when Nick Anderson decided to start playing football today, which didn't materialize because he got injured after the first series. So it's really disappointing to see this offense do absolutely nothing when the defense, especially in the first half, did everything it could to keep this team in the game and give them golden opportunities inside Tennessee on the 5-yard line one, and then inside the 35 or 40 on the other one, and literally got 0 out of either one.
My main problem with Seth is I think they've been too stubborn in thinking that what their game plan is going to work, instead of realizing what our weaknesses are and choosing to do something to help us out. Because we know, anybody knows, that anyone that's even never watched football could watch OU play the first 3 weeks of the season and see that the offensive line is a major problem. Yet we didn't do anything to protect the offensive line or the quarterback with our game plan.
Yeah, we never brought the tight ends in. It was like every time we looked out, we had Bauer Sharp spread out wide and just 5 linemen against a Tennessee defensive line that's really good, and you offered no help on the inside. That made no sense to me. But
he made it. Well, in the third quarter, we'd run some inside zone runs and gotten just destroyed. Finally, Hawkins hits Sharp over the middle for a pretty good game. We run down there, hurry up to run an inside and lose 2 yards.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. I also don't understand when Tatum has a big run in the first half, breaks some tackles, then we hand it to him again, and he fumbles the ball. I mean, he's probably a little tired. I know they historically have done that. They keep on feeding the same guy. But he had run a hard run.
Well, he not only a hard run, he had taken a really hard hit.
I think he was
Right.
concussed.
I mean, his longest run of the night was 6
And we-
yards.
and
So
we
he
didn't take
never
him
had a
off the
big
field.
run.
But I'm saying he got
No, that was that run. It was
That's
6
6 yards, and the
It
next
was
one
a,
he
it was
fumbled.
a
6 whole yards.
well, it was for a first down though.
It was for a first down.
It was a very important run.
And he broke
That was
some
a midfield.
tackles.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a good run. He had gotten hit really hard, and we fed him the ball immediately. And I think it was the concussion had already happened
right. 6 yards is a big run in my book tonight.
compared to our average.
That's
But
pathetic.
and I'm gonna sticking on the coaches. Say one thing: Venables made his comment. The ones are the ones for a reason, and the twos are twos for a reason. Talking about injuries. Well, Hawkins sure looks better than Jackson Arnold. So maybe you don't evaluate talent.
That's
as
going to
well
be
as you
something I'm
should.
definitely going to lean
Uh,
on in a minute. Yeah,
But in
Come
defense
back
of the
to that.
coaches, Jackson Arnold threw 2 wide receiver screens, one where it was the lateral, on the wrong side of the receiver. He threw one to Burks, and we had it blocked up, and he threw it behind him, and he dropped, and it's incompletion.
And he's rushing those throws.
He's rushing those throws. If he throws it in front of him, we had it blocked up. They roll Jackson Arnold out to the wide side. Burks is wide open on a post. Everybody in the stadium sees it.
He looks to his
On the-
left.
he looks
and
to his
checks
left.
back to the right to throw
Right.
it into coverage.
I was so confused by every aspect of that. I didn't understand what was happening
He
because
just glanced to his left, and then
I was so
immediately-
excited. No, you should have seen me. I was getting up doing the touchdown
The
signal.
one time he has protection.
Because it was protection, it was everything, and he was clearly looking in that direction, and then for some reason he looks off of that and throws the just a pathetic
So,
interception.
and I want to go back and rewatch it, but in my watching it live, I think there is one read, and that is Burks. And if it's not there, he has to take it out because we ran everybody to the right. Line, running back. There can't be throw it from the opposite hash back to the side we're faking to and hope that guy's open. Now, the one thing Jackson Arnold, he was thrown into the wind, which probably factored into why it was underthrown, but it should have never been thrown.
It's triple coverage.
It's
you
triple
don't
coverage.
throw that ball, and everything is different.
I mean,
Right.
he threw that ball last week, and it was almost the linebacker, I think, was in front of it, and he almost tipped it and missed, and then it almost fell to the OU guy, but the corner was behind him, and it went for an incomplete pass, but it was literally the same exact play.
Right.
And this time, the safety came over and just snagged it.
Yeah, I got a theory actually on all that. But Connor, you started to say something.
Well, I mean, just with the coaching, just in the same vein. I mean, something I was talking to Christian about during the game. The nepotism of this, I mean, it's all too familiar in this case. Like, we experience it with Lincoln Riley and with Ruffin McNeil on defense, even Mike Stoops, because it's an easy hire. You just keep promoting because he's there, etc. Get rid of him. Alex Grinch, you try something, doesn't work, but you don't get rid of him when you should. Bob Stoops, you go back and look at Bob Stoops with Josh Heupel. Probably give him a little bit too much time.
Norvell.
And
Chuck
Norvell.
Long.
And you finally make the change. You finally make the change and you go out and you actually go find someone because you're Oklahoma and you go try to find coordinators that are going to get the job done, not make a hire that's convenient or easy. And that's what we're doing right now.
We're hiring our friends.
It's just we're hiring friends. We're hiring ex-players. Like, yeah, I know Joe John and Seth Luttrell have had a track record elsewhere, but if it doesn't fit what you have in your scheme or with your players, they're not the right guy for the job. And Jay, you and I were talking about it on the way out to the stadium. I'm on the boat. Bill Bedenbaugh needs to get fired. Bill Bedenbaugh needs to move on. If it means you lose a recruit here or a recruit there, the NFL track record and all that stuff, it doesn't matter to me.
Wasn't Bedenbaugh and Luttrell co-offensive coordinators for Arizona for a year?
Yeah, again, it's all
Yeah.
connected.
And their brother-in-laws.
And their family.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, you don't want to break up all that as a person, but as a head coach who has a job to do, who's signing checks or telling
You're
custodians to sign
managing
checks.
a multi-million
You're not
dollar
managing it well.
operation.
Let me
You've
ask
got to do that. You've got to do what makes sense for the organization.
I've been on the off the Beanbo train for years.
I'm very much off it.
Just because he seems to develop individual players well. But other than that Joe Moore award-winning line where a bunch of 3-star guys kind of all came together and
Figured it out.
gelled and it
Yeah.
became really good. Other than that, we've had individual players that were really good and have gone on to the NFL and offensive lines that are just mediocre.
Well, I'll say two things about that. One positive, one negative, or pro and con. One is, as far as the negative, who was the quarterback that year?
Sure.
Kyler. Yeah.
Kyler Murray. So it's a negative because those guys, even though they did go on to good NFL careers in most cases and did prove themselves out, if you're blocking for Kyler Murray, you're probably going to look pretty good, better than average, right? The other side of it is the fact these guys did go on and have successful careers, and it could be with Seth and all of this, that's how bad the individual players that are out there on the field today are. Now, does that come back to those coaches? Absolutely it does. So we'll circle back to all of that. So I'm not going to excuse them. I'm not ready to say they should be fired, but I'm ready to say they should all be on the absolute hot seat.
So, on that point with Kyler Murray, going back to that, you probably had a very advantageous world to block in because teams aren't going to blitz you and get too far up the field knowing if Kyler Murray gets through,
He's gone.
he's gone. So they're probably holding one linebacker back at least, if not both, to
Yeah.
make sure he's not scrambling.
Fair.
Now, my mathing might not be mathing quite well, but if it's 22-9.
No, we'll get to that. We're going to get to that. Don't
Okay,
jump
I would
ahead.
say, okay, so on the coaches, I just don't know if the coaches hiring the people they like or their friends, they just might be inept. I mean, there is so many things about how the game was called that didn't look like you understood the situation and how to judge talent or what you're picking or what you're supposed to do, and that's what I see in the coaching.
I agree, and we're going to build up to a segue to that, but first I'm going to start with, and we can look back at recent history or longer history for OU and see many examples of this. There's a big difference between a practice and a real game. We're going to talk about practice. And some players excel in practice, others excel in a real game. I don't so much buy, although there's something to occasionally, the guy who just is a gamer. But I think there's really something to the guy who looks good and is good in practice and just can't perform in a real game. And it goes back to evaluation of talent and development of talent. But it could be Jackson Arnold right now, at least, is one of those guys who's great in practice. We talked about, before we started the pod, a great point that Nolan brought up, which was on the free play that should have been a free play, the jumping off sides by Tennessee, where they throw up the deep ball. He throws up the deep ball to Thompson, and it's just on the money, and he runs into the end zone. It didn't count. That's another issue. But he's got to know there's no pressure there. Anytime there's pressure, he goes into a little bit of a silo and gets that little tunnel vision. He doesn't seem to read a defense. He doesn't seem to see the entire field. Maybe that's because he just can't do it in a real game. In a practice, in the defense of the coaches, to a degree, maybe in a practice, he is lighting it up. And everything looks great. And now in this environment, for some reason, he at least can't make the transition. Now, that's a coaching issue to, one, decipher that, and two, develop through it. And they haven't done either.
I mean, on one of the Bob Stoops pods just this last week, he was talking about there's a big difference between high school games and college games. People are faster. And he was more referring to Nico and how he's going to handle the environment coming in. But there could be a lot, and I think we mentioned before, a lot of Jackson Arnold, the same thing, is in high school you were just such a superior athlete.
On a great team.
On a great team that you didn't have to do a lot to look successful and be successful. But now when everybody is a great athlete on the field, you have to learn how to read defenses. You have to learn how to anticipate. And he never honed that skill. And maybe he will, but he's not. But right now, he doesn't look like he's he's getting better in the areas he should get better. Reading the defense pre-snap, understanding what they might be in. He doesn't seemingly do that at all.
Well, if you look at one thing that was one of the most disappointing and telling plays of the game, which is our defense creates an amazing turnover on, was it the 10-yard line or the 5-yard line? 5-yard line. And we turn right around and
To go
give
tie
the
the
ball
game.
back.
We're
It would tie
getting
the
a ball
game.
We're going to tie
This
the
game's
game
a totally
at 10-10.
different game. You tie it up there.
Yeah.
And we absolutely should. At the very least, you're coming away with a disappointing field goal. You're not thinking you're going to give him the ball back. And if you'll notice what happens on that play, I believe it's Barnes, he fakes a kind of shovel pass move to the flat with him, and it was wide open. I'm almost wondering if that's a real option. I could see him having not taken the right option.
I don't think
pulled it
Jackson
under
knows how
and
to
went.
actually run an RPO though.
So
I really
But if
don't
he has
think,
that option, he took it wrong,
yeah,
right?
but
if he
we've seen a
doesn't-
lot of situations this year where I don't think he understands, or if he does, he just doesn't make the correct decision. His RPOs are like, don't do RPOs with Jackson. 'Cause
Right.
He can't do this.
Well, we've already talked about this.
I know, but I mean, I will
And yet
reiterate,
we're back at it
like,
again.
it's not good.
But on that play, I think when you rewatch it, I disagree that it was wide open. I think he definitely can get the pitch off on the kind of the speed option pitch.
I think he's got one guy to beat.
Both of their end, and I mean they had two guys break through. I think Jackson thinks that Barnes isn't going to outrun him to the corner, and because those guys are going up the field, he can tuck it and go. But he doesn't secure the ball, or he just panics and thinks.
Well, he didn't
it's
just
not
not
open.
secure the ball. It wasn't open.
But
Like
it
he
could-
get hit. He got hit immediately.
But
I'm
that could,
saying him-
it
yeah.
can also be the play design, though.
Yes,
It could have been.
yes.
It could have been a quarterback power play where you're just trying to get the defensive end linebacker to take one false step. With
Right.
this
But
move.
Latrell trusts that too much. Like I know that
I don't even want a quarterback dive
Yeah.
from the 5-yard line.
Yeah, when
anyway.
pressure is broken down, Jackson has done good at times stepping up and taking off. But in any design run where we had success last week, it was off a bootleg to the outside where it's empty and he has space in front of him. Like I feel like the play up the middle or the design draw or the Jackson making the decision to tuck the ball and run up the middle is about 33% effective at this point. Because
we don't have
Steve, to
a
your
single
point,
run
like-
play up the middle that's effective at all.
at all. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'd much rather take the pitch there and at least take a shot on the outside, even if there are two guys crashing in. Let Barnes go make a play,
Right.
Because the interior of our offensive line is so bad that anything that's not guys crashing over or crashing on the sides is going to be shut down immediately.
And how do you not see that? How do you not know that to know not to call that call if
crazy.
that's the call?
But this goes back to Lucas's point, though. Why not spread out and run a wide receiver screen and throw it out and say, if our wide receivers can block up, our guy can fall forward for 5 yards.
Every time we've done that, we've gained 4 to
6,
5,
yeah.
4, 5, 6 yards.
I honestly thought coming after that turnover that I was going to get the play action pop pass.
Yes.
Or the
When
fade to the
pitched-
flag.
When he fake pitched it, and he kept it, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a over the top to the tight end that's wide open." Because I've literally saw it 3 other times today. I've seen it in the NFL week to week. That's a play that we haven't run yet.
extremely effective.
I don't expect him to be Tim Tebow and like do the jump and do
Sure.
but
lob it up.
lob it up. It could be there if they would put it in the offense, but we haven't run it once this season.
I don't understand that. I don't understand the call. It's like so many things I don't understand about that play in particular and so many others. Back to my theory about is Jackson just a great practice player? Is our entire offense, or maybe just the offensive line, good practice players?
Well, there's a good reason that we heard all of fall camp and that we all questioned that the offense was getting eaten up front by the defense.
Right.
Is because our offense, our defensive front is good. Our front seven's really solid. Our freaking offensive line is, I've said it on this podcast. I said it in text that you could literally field Broken Arrow or Owasso's offensive line with their offensive line coach and probably have better results than what we've had.
But I don't know. I mean, this is where it goes to coaches, too. You have it on the 6-inch yard line. He was very specific about that distance.
Twice.
Twice.
6 inch. It's not a yard line.
Right. But he says that. So the neutral zone, if I'm remembering back, is a half yard on each side of the ball. So that's 18 inches. So if you're really the 6 inches, the defense has to be 12 inches into the end zone.
So what would you do if you were an NFL coach
Right.
or anyone else? What would you have called there?
I would put somebody under center, snap it, have my center fall down, and my guy fall on top of
You
him
and
for a
everyone else
touchdown.
in that stadium knows that, except the guys on the sideline.
You're
Right.
catching the snap from the 5-yard
You're
line.
catching them, and it's the same way.
It's ridiculous.
It's the same way on the safety. Their defensive linemen go at the snap. So when you snap, our interior line sucks. So when we get a false start, we move us half the distance to the goal. So what are we on the one maybe or the 2-yard line?
Yep.
So we snap
First and
it.
12.
We're 5 yards back, so we're 3 yards in the end zone. We hand it to Barnes. We're expecting our line to block long enough for him to run 3 yards to just get out of the end zone, let alone get back to the line of scrimmage. There is no way you watch our line and think, yep, I think that's going to work. I see this being the time we get
That's
them.
exactly what I said too. I would have rather, like in that, just concede the possession and run 3 straight QB dives to stay out of the end zone and punt the ball back.
Well, I noticed, but I noticed Elzinga, he only lines up 14 to 13 yards behind. He doesn't line up the traditional 15. So you don't need to get to the 5 so he's not standing on the back of the end zone.
Just stay out of the end zone. Don't get a safety.
Right,
Don't
but I'm
turn
saying
it over.
if you
You don't have to get to the 5.
you don't even have to get to the 5.
Right.
You could have run pass plays, quick pass plays, just throw go balls, and hopefully you hit them.
Yeah.
And
I
play out
thought-
of your own end zone. If you run a pitch play to the wide side, you could have multiple. I mean, and this isn't some crazy like rugby style thing, but you tell your running back, you get it, and if you don't think you can get to the corner, throw it out of bounds. If you're
Right.
behind the line of scrimmage still,
Right.
the running back can throw it, and as long as it passes the line of scrimmage, it's just an incomplete pass.
That's not true. As
can't
long-
get grounded.
As long as someone's in the area. If it's
you
on
got wide receivers out there blocking, they don't have to turn around and look for the ball.
right, as long as it's in their vicinity.
But you could get offensive
Yeah.
pass interference.
Yeah.
I thought coming into this game, we knew that Tennessee is likely the best defensive line, maybe in the league, that we're going to see, period. But obviously, by far, the best we've seen year to date. I thought we would basically use quick passing plays and outside stuff almost 99% of the time.
Kind of what we did in the second half.
Right.
Like a
Just-
little
just,
too.
you
too
completely
little,
get
too
away
late.
from trying to have our guys bully ball the best defensive line we're going to see at all.
So-
Well, we
Any time
gimmicked
during
it.
the
we
We
don't have the
gimmicked
tight
it
ends
up.
in blocking
We
either.
gimmicked it up for
So,
Hawkins.
it's
Why did we not
5-on-4.
gimmick it up for
We
Arnold?
ran it 20 times up the middle tonight. 20 times.
So
We have
No,
1.9.
1.1.
horrible
1.1.
game. A horrible game is
We barely got to one. It was under one late in the fourth quarter.
So a horrible game historically for OU was the USC game in the Orange Bowl. But if you remember that game when we had Dan Cody and other solid players, every play they dropped Matt Leinart back and rolled him out to one side, and they basically just screened us to one side, and that's why they ate us up, because our rush couldn't get to him because they knew which side they were going to roll him out to.
We
and
didn't.
then they just walled us off back the other way. We should have done the same thing tonight. There's no reason to drop straight back when they can go right up the middle and get.
And
get you
again,
every
it goes back to coaching and everything else, with lack of adjustments,
Right.
but not taking what the defense is giving you and trying to the stubbornness you mentioned, Steve, and trying to stick to something that's just not working.
Right.
Get away from
So-
it.
I think you go into the game.
I respect the Hawkins change.
Right. I respect the Hawkins change.
Although I wonder if it wasn't just so obvious they had to do it. It's not like they went out on a limb and did it, right?
Right.
Everyone in that
Brett-
stadium is ready for
Brett
it.
said tonight in his postgame that they're still going to reevaluate the quarterback.
Were you guys completely sure that Hawkins was going to start the second half?
No, I thought Arnold would come back out.
Because I thought it might be like the Spencer Rattler
Texas game.
situation.
I was
thought-
70-30.
Before half, and then he came
I
out
would have
right
been
second
pretty
half.
surprised.
I was also
Only-
on the fence though when Hawkins went like 2 3 and outs in a row, and I was like, if he goes the third drive where he goes 3 and out and doesn't produce anything, probably put Arnold back in. Like at this
when
point,
you give him one pass in
flip-flop,
those 3
flip-flop.
drives,
Well,
basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, we're going to give you a real good chance. We're going to run inside zone a bunch of times and
Right.
evaluate how well you hand that ball off.
Maybe you can scramble.
And maybe you can scramble. But
I'm with you, Connor, though, and I'm not defending Jackson Arnold, but the second half game plan that you gave to Hawkins, we don't know what that looks like with Jackson Arnold, because you just keep trying to shove this conventional game plan that's not working down their throats with Jackson Arnold. And how many times did we get Hawkins out of the pocket in the second half? maybe he's just better than Arnold.
I can
maybe
also-
Arnold wouldn't have done anything with it, but you still would have liked to have seen get Arnold out and free with one read.
The thing is, I still don't think he reads it. Though.
I can tell
Well,
you in
they
the
did,
end
and
zone,
He still might not have.
the
Yeah.
blocking in the second half, there were holes probably 2 people wide in the middle where the center had gone either left or right to help block. And there were huge holes in the middle on the passing plays for Hawkins to throw it down the middle to like the one where Petaway came across. There was another one where Petaway came across and we didn't throw it to him. But it was wild that in the probably late third, early fourth quarter, these massive throwing lanes were opening up in the defense, and they weren't there at all.
They were
So
there.
I don't-
They were there
two and a
at
half
the,
quarters.
They were there at the very beginning of the game, and they didn't connect. There was a drop ball. There was a
Oh, if he
Thompson
hit
would
Thompson
in stride.
in
it's a
stride,
touchdown.
it's a touchdown. Yeah.
And Thompson still should have probably caught that ball, but there were moments of that.
But I think
I
Thompson
om-
slowed down on that.
I almost
I know.
wonder if you went back and look at it, especially if you were Seth Luttrell and you knew what you called, if it's not actually that different between the first half and the second half, it's just execution by the
Then
player.
it's an
So I think it is. And I'll tell you, like, if you were game planning it going in, since we're all great coaches, but you know your interior line's pretty weak. So you say, I have to get Tennessee spread out to open up some lanes, and I have to get their safeties back. So you're calling wide receiver screens out to the outside, and you're probably running some deep shots just to pull their safeties where they're not coming down on the run, hoping that opens up some middle. But I think when Hawkins comes in and he has some success scrambling and running wide, Tennessee's defense says you have to contain him and push him in the middle of the field. You can't let him get on the edge because he's a better athlete. So now your offensive line can separate and open up the middle of the field because Tennessee was worried about him getting outside because he showed if he gets outside, he can actually make some people miss. And he ran through some tackles and he broke some tackles.
He played great.
He played great.
Smoked a couple
played
times.
And he slowed down. And so I think it was just because the player is better, they decided we can't get our defensive ends pushed up too much. We can't sell out the middle.
There's also the issue that they didn't game plan for Michael Hawkins.
Right.
And so you got them coming into a game prepared for Jackson Arnold where they performed better. You have to give a little bit of grace to the fact that had they prepared for Michael Hawkins, then you might have a different experience as far as what that defense was able to do. But I think what you're saying is correct. You basically saw two different players, one significantly better tonight than the other one, regardless of what the defense was doing, could do, was trained to do, or anything. And it opened things up for the Sooners with Michael Hawkins. So I'll be surprised and disappointed if he's not the starter against Auburn. But I won't be completely shocked because I know how these things go.
So if he's not the starter and you struggle and, you get beat, I don't know how how any of those people, if you're Castiglione, keep their job. How you say, oh, wait, we had him come in against Tennessee, play great, and you decide to go back to your guy.
For one
and we
real
got beat
important
again.
reason strategically, and you got to think about this kind of a thing. So if you're Jackson Arnold, you don't want to play this game against Auburn if there's a chance you're not going to play the rest of the season.
Right.
Because that's your fifth game and you're losing a year of eligibility. And for the same reason that you can't let a player dictate what you do, you also can't communicate to people that we're just going to use and abuse you if you come to Oklahoma and we may burn a year for you, a la John Blake burning who's Josh Norman's red shirt
Right.
against TCU for an onside kick.
TCU. Yeah.
And you can't do that to a player today. That's going to resonate down the road for other players who are going to say, no, wait a second. I'm not going to go play for you because I can't trust that you're going to look out for me.
If you're Jackson Arnold and you're going to sleep tonight, I think what you're thinking is, I'm not a 3-year going to the NFL guy. You've really hurt your stock.
That's changed.
I'm going to have to play as many years in college as I can to get better.
Probably.
So you might be going into Venables saying, hey, if I'm not the guy, I don't want you to play me so I can redshirt and keep an extra year for whatever, either here or the next school I go
Like,
to.
I'm here to play if you get injured, if Hawkins gets injured or
Right.
whatever, but go in this different direction and see if it works because it doesn't look like – and who knows? He's got to keep an open mind because he might redshirt this year and come back as the Sooners quarterback.
Well, and it sucks.
You
Like
just
I
don't
feel,
know.
I feel for him too. Like we've talked about it endlessly on this pod. Like we did him a disservice by not getting him playing time last year.
Yes, we did.
I think we had a massive opportunity to get him the confidence that he doesn't have right now against teams like Kansas State. Oh, sorry, not Kansas State. We didn't play them. He got a little bit against BYU, but against Oklahoma State.
Or had to against BYU.
Yeah.
I mean, if he did,
all of those
he
teams.
would have that red. He would have used the red shirt last year,
Right, but
not
I mean,
for the Gabriel.
But I mean, I think we look a lot different right now. I think he looks
Right.
a lot different right now, and he actually
looked
has a
more
different
confident
trajectory.
last year.
And
But he
Arizona
didn't.
game.
But he didn't have anything to lose last year.
That's, I think, it.
The Arizona,
That's it.
the Arizona game had no
Same as practice.
bearing.
Same as practice.
It's a glorified practice. Same thing with BYU.
Right.
He knows he's not starting next week. He's going to go in, try to win the game. Going to go stick to the game plan, but he's going to let loose a little
So,
bit.
and
but
you-
he already had the excuses written in. BYU, hey, I prepared as a backup. I wasn't ready to go in. I tried to do my best. Arizona it's my first game. The offensive line isn't great.
I'm going to just let it loose.
I'm going to let it loose.
Yeah.
And now it is you're the guy we expect
you're not
you to
getting
win.
it done.
And if
And I know it's different coaches, some different coaches, one different coach, different offensive coordinator, but thinking to anyone who might criticize the position we've took, which was that we thought Jackson Arnold should have played more last year and the ceiling was higher, he'd be in a better place today had he played last year more.
And what did we lose? What did we?
And what did we really
last
lose?
year? Or what did
And-
we win last
and
year?
if
We
you-
went to a freaking Alamo Bowl.
And if you want to say the coaches knew he wasn't ready, then how the hell did the coaches not get him ready and know he's ready this year?
Exactly.
Something doesn't jibe about that. You can't have it both ways. You can't say he shouldn't have played last year because he wasn't going to be ready, and he should play this year, and it wouldn't have helped him had to have played more last year, earlier, etc. Even if he didn't replace Dylan Gabriel, even if he just played more.
I'll defend Arnold just a little bit. He might not be as good as Hawkins is with this kind of offensive line, right? Hawkins might be the better player right now for what our offense is dealing with. You still don't know what he looked like when he had Burks,
Anderson, Anthony,
Farouk,
Gibson.
Gibson, in an offensive line that wasn't injured yet.
Very true.
Maybe he really did look pretty darn good. But now that we have lost those, because that's the reality,
You got to adapt.
he's not good enough for not having those players around him.
Coaches
He might
have to
be
adapt.
Absolutely elite with the
Yeah.
offensive line
Yes.
and those receivers around him.
I think you're right. And injuries are something that I wrote down. I mean, injuries are just, it's colossal. We haven't had a year where we've been this hit by injuries since 2009. And even that year was just 3-4 key players. This is just unbelievable how much we're getting hit by injuries. It is sad and
Well, and Burks, I mean,
Yeah.
so we went from losing going into the season. Nick Anderson hadn't played a game until, 10 snaps today. You didn't have Gibson's out. You've got Farouk got hurt in the first game. Burks was going to be your transfer in that we were hoping was going to be like the second guy behind maybe Anderson or Angelo Anthony, who hasn't played other than a couple snaps.
Right.
So literally, when Burks goes out, your best receiver, quote unquote, is your fifth guy. It was probably Brennan Thompson,
Sixth guy.
who sucks right now because all he can do is run a deep route, and he's stopping when the ball's in the air.
Who do
Or-
we distribute to tonight?
I mean, literally, your best playmaker on offense right now is Bow Sharp because he can go sit down in the zone and catch a 10-yard pass.
he missed
Guys,
one
this-
tonight.
Sometimes he can catch a 10-yard pass.
Guys,
Well, we threw one to him that even if he catches it, he's still 3 yards short of the
Yeah.
first down.
we had
look,
4 receivers catch balls.
The game is on the line, right? There's still a chance for us to win this game.
And it's Petaway.
We have a redshirt freshman in Petaway and 2 true freshman wide receivers.
Reagan's and Carry On out there.
And Kearney was out there.
I mean, it's
Curtin,
just
Curtin. Yeah, sorry.
I don't know what you do with that.
Well, I texted y'all during the second half, and I watched 6 defensive snaps in a row, and Danny Stutzman's on the sideline.
so I think the play there, and if you want to transition
Janik
a little
was
bit to defense, because we do need to laud our defense a lot. I think the thinking is because he didn't play in a full series, then he played a full series, then he didn't play a full series. I think it was an on-off. He was getting rest. Maybe a shout out to Josh, our fireman friend. I think the idea was they wanted to make sure he was there for the entirety of the game.
I think it was a speed substitution.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I
they
think
probably
didn't
couldn't.
think, I don't think he could play.
In the
I don't
third
think he
quarter.
could play side to side fast enough to catch the back out of the backfield. Because one time he was definitely slow. When
Well,
they
either
hit the
way, he
pass-
played,
he was
but he
hosed.
played and then
Right.
he didn't play, and then he did
But I'm
play.
saying I think they did it based on down and distance and what plays we thought they were
Well,
going to
I
run.
don't know. It was the entire series, and it was
Right, because
I mean-
when it was anything
That was in
less
the
than
third
third
quarter, I
and
think,
four,
wasn't
no. This is the
He was
this
not.
is this
Yeah.
first quarter. He didn't play the second series, and then he played, and then he didn't play again, if
Right.
I remember right. So I think they were
An
doing
all
that to
SEC
keep him fresh.
linebacker, you're just
But I-
trying to keep him fresh.
but I don't think he
I
can play
can't
side
criticize
to
anything
side.
they did. I mean, I'm going to say whatever they did on defense, I'm going to completely say was absolutely the
I
correct
mean, we
thing to
had
do.
3 busts essentially.
Yeah, I'm going
at the corner position.
It was perfect.
2 of which are
defense.
Woody.
Two of who shouldn't a player that shouldn't be on the
Yeah,
field.
Woody should
And-
be out there. I mean,
and-
Gentry being out really hurts.
I don't
Yes.
think they were busts. They were out
I agree.
athleted, and it was some scheme. They didn't
It was a
have
scheme.
over the top.
We did have no over the top coverage. We're preventing the run.
Billy bit on a play
mean,
action on one.
I don't have anything to say that's criticism for the defense whatsoever.
So
I want perfection. Steve.
Woody and Walker.
Is that realistic?
Woody and Walker were definitely a step slower than the wide receivers they were covering. The ones to Woody, I think, and every team goes at Woody. And so I don't know why we can't figure out to give him safety help.
I agree.
But on Walker, I do think we had safety help. They did play action, and Bowman starts running up.
Yeah.
And about 3 steps into it, he realizes he's supposed to cover underneath so that so Nico has to lob the ball to give
Right.
Walker time to catch up at the end of the first quarter. And Bowman's trying to track back, and he just throws it on the line, and there's no way Walker's catching that guy.
Yeah, the way I'd look at it, no, I totally agree. I think you're right. The diagnosis is correct. I would say that we were playing one of the top offenses in the country, coached by one of the top offensive minds in the country, and we played great defense. We played stellar defense. Whether you think or not, that I mean, the proof's in the stats and what they put up. I mean,
Oh,
these
yeah,
guys,
they slaughtered NC State, who's terrible, and Kent State, who's terrible.
maybe they're not that. All right, they're very good.
Josh
they're
Heupel's not a top
extremely
offensive
good.
mind in my book.
Maybe not, but it's kind of like
I bet
it's not quite. It's not the same as saying Georgia doesn't have a great defense, but you're getting close when you start to criticize how good they are because of what they put on the field and what they do.
there's a very small chance Tennessee scores this low again.
Yeah.
I agree.
It was
Even
great
against Georgia.
defense. And I'm sure. Here's the deal. I'm sure Brent Venables will have a complete laundry list, a book he can write about mistakes that were made tonight. I saw him chewing guys out. It was amazing. The deal is, he's not just yelling at him to yell at him. He's got something very deliberate they're not doing. It doesn't seem to be the same thing on offense as it is on defense, where obviously, one, they're trying to get perfection, and they're really close to it. On offense, it's just like, we're just trying to get the basics.
He said something along the lines in his post game. He's tired of seeing the same mistakes being made on offense.
It's just like, but it's
For whatever that's worth.
yeah, and
That's
for
worth
what it's
something.
worth, it's like you go and you watch a game of two, in my mind, lesser teams than OSU last night in Illinois, Nebraska. And Nebraska, you can outlier them. They have a great freshman quarterback, whatever. Illinois, a middle to bottom half Big Ten team, has a quarterback that can go move the ball down the field.
And an offensive line.
And an
that
offensive
blocks.
line that can block to allow him to move the ball down the field. There's
That's
no
my
reason we
whole
shouldn't
deal.
have that.
My whole deal with Beanball is Beanbo.
Is how he does his name.
Yes, we have
The
enough
spelling of his name.
players that were elite players as offensive linemen that can't seem to get one single yard for a running back.
Literally.
We watch teams all over the country
Oh, we can get 1.1, sorry.
that don't have the players we have on the offensive line. So what is the disconnect?
It's coaching.
It's
I do
coaching.
not think he's a good
But
coach.
everyone thinks he's a great coach.
Well, they're all
Everyone.
there's some sort of
even if you watch
blind.
the
There's
NFL,
They even tried to hire him.
blinders
even if
there.
you watch the
And
NFL
He
Network,
coached.
they
He
talk
coached
about
the
it.
player who caught a TD pass last week. Wanya
Wanya
Morris.
Morris,
I mean, he coached the best fullback in the NFL right
But
now.
seriously, when you're watching the combine or
Right.
NFL Network or something, and they laud Beanbo, all of them.
a lot of ways.
I mean,
All of them.
Orlando Brown couldn't lift the bar or 15 times or whatever
Right.
it was in the bench press thing, and which lowered his draft stock. And then he's a Pro Bowler like 3 seasons later.
I think individual technique, like you said earlier, Jay, Beatonbow coaches very well.
he needs to go start a
When you
sports.
look at the But when you look at
training facility.
Creed Humphrey, 3-star from, was it Shawnee? He's just a generational talent that nobody knew about that came in and maybe makes you look really good as a coach because he's really great about shifting the protections when he's calling them out on the line.
It's like in anything. It's hard to separate skill from luck. Right. And there's a chance he's just been really lucky. And there's a chance he has skill, but that skill does not translate into great offensive line as a unit being able to go out there and consistently do it. And now we've seen it under different multiple offensive coordinators, and we saw it perform
It's been
poorly,
5 years.
Perform poorly under Lincoln Riley in the latter years, and obviously poorly under Jeff Lebby and Seth Luttrell.
So let me sort of elaborate on that in one way. When Stoops first got here, we were at the bottom. We were definitely the underdogs. People felt like we were the underdogs in a lot of things. And he was the gambler who ran fake field goals against Missouri. We ran fake punts against Alabama.
Fake field goal against Texas.
Fake field goal against
We
Texas.
blocked stuff against A&M.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as Stoops went on, it became, well, we are this traditional power. We don't need to do gimmicky stuff. We'll just do what we do, and we'll be good at it. And it always fell short. And there's a little bit of that feel that I have with this.
It becomes a culture.
It's a culture. And, like, you have the line, and you think, well, I'm beating Bo. I know how to coach line. I'm going to do what we always do. I don't need to get gimmicky with blocking
And if
schemes.
you were doing whatever you're doing, I'm not going to be so. This is going to be hyperbole, but if I yelled at Ford, Cody Ford, I yelled at Creed Humphrey, I yelled at these guys. I'm yelling at these guys. Why isn't it working? Well, it's because those guys were unbelievable talents.
Right.
You could have done anything you wanted with them, and they were going to be great.
And it's
I
like
don't- I
that
don't
shift.
think we're talentless, is what I'm getting at.
No,
Right.
and that's
But they're
no.
not.
I don't.
But he
either.
won't
I'm not
give
saying
anybody.
we're-
He
no,
won't
no,
give
no.
anybody a position.
I'm not
though.
saying we're talentless. I'm saying he thinks that what he did was good. It wasn't what he did. I could have coached those lines and been pretty damn good potentially.
He thinks it's a recipe where I put in my screaming, I put in this, I put in that, and I got this great line once. So if I just keep on doing that, I'm always going to get a great
Becomes a
line.
cargo
Oh, and by the
calls.
way, anybody in that line
Right.
can go play any of
And
the
I'm-
5 positions.
Right. And I might have
that's
mentioned
BS.
this before. I might have mentioned it before. One of the times that I really questioned a lot was when we played K-State and we took the intentional safety back under Stoops. And Stoops in his postgame said they had called timeout, and Ferguson, our punter, had come over to him and said, hey, Coach, why don't I just take a safety? And Stoops said, I hadn't even thought about that. And I'm thinking, we're paying you millions of dollars, and you didn't. Everybody in the stadium knew to take a safety there.
Right.
And we still did it wrong. We didn't intentionally hold. We should have held everywhere and then ran the entire clock off, but we still had to kick the kickoff to them, and they had a chance for a Hail Mary against us. But the point is, I don't think these coaches, yeah, you're right. It's maybe not, it's not that they're, geniuses the way they do or malice or anything. They might just be so ignorant. They don't realize that in themselves of, I'm not the greatest coach there's ever been. I
might have to do something different.
I might need to do something different. I might need to look at who I have, look at what we're doing, and do something
We to
different.
the point of the offensive line that we need to go to the Texas Tech split.
Yeah,
that
maybe.
Leach ran where you
Maybe.
got like a half a yard in between each lineman.
Yeah,
That's
I remember when Gary Gibbs did that against Colorado one year, though,
That
and
did
on the
not go
TV
well.
they said, "Well, look how they're doing these wide splits," and it just opened up for them to sack us more.
That's a great point because it could go either way. It could
Right.
be again that ingredients put it in and it's going to make the recipe work,
Try it.
or it could be
Try
the
it.
thing that
Right.
works. So here's the difference.
I mean, it
though.
doesn't work against maybe
No,
this
no, no.
defensive line, and it doesn't work against Georgia's defensive line.
Right.
But it can work against
No,
Auburn,
I'm not
can
saying it won't work.
against
Right.
Missouri.
I'm saying that's the difference between a great coach and somebody who's sort of imitating. If you're back in the Gary Gibbs year, that was imitation. And it didn't matter what they did, they were never going to get it there. If you look at Mike Leach, he was an innovator. And one thing that's interesting, a point I'd like to make about this is he did not come from traditional coaching.
Yeah.
He was a different
He's a
mind
lawyer.
that came from something different. And he thought outside the
There's
box.
a 0% chance that Mike Leach tonight, with our offensive line,
Would have done that.
ran up the middle 20 times.
No.
He
And-
would have said,
He would have
our
seen
run,
the difference.
Our run plays are
Wide
now
receiver screens.
Wide receiver screens.
And to
Or
circle
flat-
back
out of the flats of the running back.
to both of your points. So you look at traditional coaching, it is, I remember Bobby Bowden talking about this once, about how you just naturally get conservative in really big games. And he was defending it, and I think it actually is something that probably is a criticism of traditional
It's
coaching.
Mike Gundy.
It is very much so. And it is what a lot of coaching is about. I mean, not to pick on an entire, as we got Carl the possum walking behind me, not to pick on an entire group of people in a profession, but there are some blinders that they have, some blind spots. And they all come from one very insular type of thinking, and it's very it doesn't come and think outside of the box.
Right.
And so what they do is they do what everybody else does, and they do what everybody who taught them to do. But you got a Mike Leach who thinks differently and says, the hell with that, we're going to do it different. And I got an idea.
I think this goes full circle back to what Connor said, and it sort of goes to these coaching trees about Hayden Fry or we're hiring our buddies.
Very incestuous.
I think they're hiring people that won't, question what they're doing and challenge the ideas of how
we know
it's
that's
gonna
the
be.
case. It's the they won't go for it on fourth down. It's the entire issue of all of what we see in coaching.
And Nick Saban's in his locker room when he's coaching. If his offensive coordinator's not getting it done, he's sitting him down and chewing his ass out.
And not just
and
chewing
saying,
to chew.
You're not doing your job to make the whole team better at what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
So you need to figure it the F out, or I'm going to go find someone else. And Nick Saban found multiple people in multiple
And he
different
was not
seasons.
afraid to make a change.
And was never
ever.
unsuccessful with it.
He was
Always
never afraid to
successful
make a
for Miami.
change.
Except for Miami.
So
Talking about Alabama.
I want to talk more about coaching, but before we do that, I want to thank one of our sponsors, Tobacco Exchange. Tobacco Exchange, very loyal supporter of the Postgame Pod. 3 great locations throughout the metro area: Edmond, Moore, Oklahoma City. Best prices and staff in the entire metro area for cigars. Lucas, what are we smoking tonight?
I've got a Oliva Series V, 135th anniversary.
That's a long time.
That is a long
It's a
time.
lot of years.
It is great. I've almost finished it before we got to this ad. It's been so good,
It's been so good.
and I'm going to go by there and pick me up another one.
It's great. Go by there, check it out. Obviously, great prices, great selection.
Staff.
Wonderful staff. Thank you to Tobacco Exchange. So some more stuff. Let's just pile on about the coaches, because I know I harp on this a lot. I yelled it in the stadium. I yell it almost every time they make mistakes, but it pisses me off. Those guys make millions of dollars. I don't have a lot of tolerance for mistakes and ignorance. And there were some things that we see tonight that are continuations of ignorance. One thing that we haven't really talked about, even off the pod before, that I thought was something that we expected to see coming into the game, we didn't see, and I was okay with it until I wasn't. And that is, we did not opt for a game control, ball control type of offense that ran the clock, kept their offense off the field, and gave our defense rest. In contrast, we ran the ball very quickly. We were trying to go
Up the middle.
some version of tempo, and it was working until it really wasn't. When it wasn't,
When
and-
did it work? I mean,
I know we
Well,
huddled at
no.
the end though.
No.
With Hawkins in, when we needed to go fast,
Yeah.
we were huddling.
Yeah.
And
So we
checking
did
with
the
and
opposite.
checking
but
with the
defense-
sideline.
Our defense
but he's a true
offense-
freshman. He doesn't know the thing. I
The
understand
defense
that.
was getting stops,
Right.
and we're coming out, and we've talked about it 1,000 times. Under Levy, we've talked about it now under Luttrell, and you go 3 and out in a minute and a half, and then your defense is
best.
right back on the damn field when it's not crazy to go 3 and out in 2.5 or 3 minutes. And it doesn't sound like a ton, but when you add in the TV timeout afterwards, you add in the punt and all the other stuff, that gives your defense 8 minutes of rest instead of 5 minutes of rest. And that's a big difference.
The one time it was working was in the first quarter when we were moving the ball. We were actually seeing production. You know, if you look at the drive that leads to the field goal, if you look at the drive that is the interception, those were actually productive drives. I don't mind you scoring fast as long as you score. But if you're going to move fast to punt the ball, that's a problem.
Yeah, get plus
And
yards
as
if you're moving
the
fast.
game went on and it was still a 1 or 2 score game, you've got to think we need to give our – I was really concerned. I thought what was going to happen was our poor defense was going to play a great game and was going to get so gassed at the very end that we're going to give up a couple of stupid
give them
touchdowns.
30s.
And they sure didn't. It was amazing that they
At
did.
12 minutes, we had 12 minutes of possession like halfway through the third quarter.
And I get you have to, once you're down 2 scores, then, yeah, you better start running a faster offense.
Right, for
Because
sure.
you've got to try to catch
For
up.
sure.
But for the whole first half, what was the score at halftime?
19-3.
It was 19-3, but it was 10-3. Well, we get a score right at the very end of the half.
Right, so
But
16.
it was 12-3 after that safety,
right.
Yep.
which
Yeah,
was
12, yeah,
like
yeah.
halfway through
Yeah, we gave
the
it a
second
touchdown.
quarter.
Mhm.
And then what do? Oh, let's come out. We're going to run 3 plays or whatever, and then we're going to punt. And you're giving the ball back, and then they go get the touchdown.
It was like there's no coherence about what the clock was, what the number of expected possessions were. There was no game plan.
They need
There was-
some math weirdo like you guys.
Well, let's talk about math
that.
because it's not that
Hold
hard.
on, before we get off that, and I'll jump in front of Jay, but I want to say one thing about that too. It's not just resting your defense; it's getting their offense out of rhythm.
Yes.
If their offense has to set for 5 minutes, it's why they ride the little bikes on the sideline. They want to stay fresh. They want to keep the legs loose. If you're letting them just get some water and then come back out, they're more in rhythm than they should be too. Sorry, Jay.
Oh no, you're good.
No.
This is about the halftime statistics of our maybe
This
midway
was
to the third
great.
quarter.
This
This
was
is insane on how inept we are at even putting someone like Arnold or the entire offense just at a loss off the get-go. So we had 7 yards, 3 turnovers, and a safety just on first downs. Like midway through the third quarter. Barnes for a 5-yard loss. Arnold incomplete pass. Arnold run for -2 yards. A pass to Burks for 3. An Arnold interception. An incomplete pass. Burks ran for 7. Arnold incomplete pass. A catch for 12 yards. Sawchuk for 0. Arnold for a fumble. Barnes for -2 on a safety. Pass to Barnes for -2. Arnold backwards pass fumble. And a fumble recovered by Hawkins for -4 yards.
Are you telling me we weren't
Just
winning?
on first down.
Hawkins was in on that? Hawkins was the guy he was thrown to?
No, Hawkins was the one when the first play gets in,
Oh, the
and they
fumble.
snap
Yeah,
it way
the
off
fumble.
to the
Yeah, yeah,
side,
yeah, yeah.
and he has to dive and
Jump
get
on
it, and they
Right. Okay, I got you.
I mean, yeah, so 15 times on first down up to these statistics. You had 7 yards,
Right.
3 turnovers, and a safety. You cannot win a game starting second down like that.
no matter how good your defense is.
It doesn't matter.
It's so
What's
sad.
sad is we were in a game with those horrible stats.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you just have a somewhat
A three-
competent offense,
A 2nd and 7
And that's what boils down to this whole loss being
makes
so
it
frustrating.
look incredible. If we could just have a 2nd and 7. But no. The very first play of the game looked like we didn't know what we were doing. Who messed that up? Was it the
Barnes.
running back?
Barnes.
No,
well,
it was a bad snap.
It's a bad snap.
But
It was
we
a
didn't
bad
know who was
snap.
Bad
getting
snap
it
from
to.
Hickman.
Nobody took it.
It was, and in
a
addition to
5-yard
that, he
loss.
was going the wrong
no,
direction.
this is what I think happened. I think it was a bad snap. Arnold fields it. Barnes is already through the mesh point.
Yep.
So then Arnold tries to hand it off, but he's handing it to Barnes' back because Barnes has run through. And now Arnold doesn't know what to do, so he just pulls it and gets hit in the backfield. So I think that snap timing threw that, which Barnes isn't paying attention because he should have been watching. But I think
Waiting for
Barnes is
the-
just
waiting for
watching
the
the ball go.
handoff.
He's not watching where
Where
it
it's
was in
going.
relation to
Well, in
Arnold.
his defense, you shouldn't have to look for that, right? The
Right.
offensive line should.
Arnold scored a touchdown last week on what looked like a quarterback draw, but it was
busted
really
play.
a bad snap that was high that he missed the handoff and just had to take off running with it.
Right.
He scored a touchdown. on that.
and you can do that
Same play
against
last week.
Tulane, not against
Exactly.
Tennessee. So
But the math thing you were going to get to.
yeah,
So,
talk about math.
So it's
No, please don't.
It's 22-9. So if we get the extra point, it's 22-10, which still means we have to score 2 touchdowns, right?
Right.
Because they're still giving 6 points for those, unless we think we're going to miss some extra points. But or they give 7 if we get those. So if we go for 2, even as far back as we were
After the
'Cause we got a
penalty.
penalty.
after the
It
penalty,
was a hands to the face.
that we
Hands to the face.
hands
We
to the face,
scored on the
scored on the 2-point conversion.
Yep.
But if we go for the 2-point conversion to get it, it's 22-11. So now we're only down by 11. So touchdown, 2-point conversion, and a field goal.
2 possessions.
We only need 2, and one of them is a
them's a
field
touchdown,
goal.
yeah.
One's a field goal, one's a touchdown. But we line up to kick an extra point. Even if we hit it, you're still down 22-10. Now you still need 2 touchdowns. So you're basically conceding you have to score 2 touchdowns in a game where you have only scored 1.
And only in the weirdest of circumstances is that 1 point even valuable. you might as well say, well, here, we'll just not even bother kicking it.
Or we may as
It
well not
doesn't
have.
matter. And we may as well not have
because
because
you
we
missed
didn't
it.
hit it.
Yeah.
And that's something that also just bugs me. I
Right.
don't understand how
But
their kicker comes out and hits it like it's going over the stadium through the middle, and we can't get it there. I don't understand.
there's
Goes
no
out of the
reason-
stadium when the fans throw it
But
out.
as your
Yeah,
coach,
don't even get me started on the fans.
even I hate the sheet. I hate everything. You know, you have to be a thinker if you're getting paid the money to think.
But the
this.
sheet has a lot of thinking on it.
But what you have to do is you have to say, look at the clock. We're in the fourth quarter. The odds you're going to drive on them and get 2 touchdowns is pretty low. The chances, though, you could get the ball back with 1:50 and just have to get in field goal range is going to be pretty high.
Right.
So going for 2 there, if you get it, is astronomically beneficial to your chances of winning. Because now on your last possession, you don't have to, assuming you'll make the field goal, you just have to get to the 30-yard line.
There's a little bot that you can use. You just download it, and it says, go for it, or
Right.
extra point, or go for it.
If you
And
miss
you'll
a
know
two-point
it's go for
conversion,
it.
who cares? You still got to have the 2 touchdowns.
You still have to have the 2 touchdowns
Right.
anyways.
Because there's no difference between 13 and 12
None.
points,
There's
guys.
no difference.
None.
There's no difference.
And we
There's a
saw
huge
it
difference
immediately.
between
we saw it
13,
immediately.
between
My
12
friend saw
and
it.
11.
My friend in this stadium, he saw it immediately. That's too many people who aren't paid. I'm not paid anything to coach football here. You're not paid
We're
anything.
paying football. We're paying to talk
for
about
this.
coaching
So
football.
You've got to have somebody on staff who says, guys, no, there's no reason to kick this.
So I call this a little bit.
Hell, even the kicker should be like,
What am I doing?
what am I doing?
Well, he kept
No.
on warming up for the whole game.
He
I don't
did.
know why. When we were down by 16, he's out there every time out swinging his leg. Like, buddy, we're
The
not
only thing
kicking
I can think is
anything.
if some weird thing happens and we're kicking a field goal to win the game or something after 2
Right.
touchdowns. But here's the deal. All of us realize it. There's absolutely no reason to do it. It isn't as even you could give a little bit of an excuse to say, hey, we don't want to show one of our 2-point conversions. Your 2-point conversion isn't from the 20-yard line. That's just an offensive play.
And also, our offense sucks. You're not showing anything.
You're not showing anything.
Not
So
showing
that
anything.
excuse is gone.
There's a little bit of like the Jeopardy paradox where when people watch Jeopardy on TV, they always know the answers. But when the people who are really smart get on there, they get nervous. They don't know when to buzz in. They don't say. I think there's a little bit that goes on with the coaches like that. Like as the fan,
Sure.
we're a little bit more
We're like
relaxed.
Jackson Arnold in practice.
We're Jackson Arnold practice. We can see it, but when you're in
But you
the
need
heat of the
somebody who
moment as
does
the
that.
coach,
Somebody on the sideline who's
but you should
paid.
pay somebody who is an actual paid coach who sits there and knows nothing about football, but knows everything about math and strategy and gamesmanship and can figure out, okay, here's the right play here.
He could be the same guy who's looking up at the clock saying, wait a second, you need to think about this.
Right.
We need to run clock. Don't run clock. Go fast. Don't go fast. You got 2 possessions and you've only got 3 minutes. It's little
Steve,
stuff.
it's a free ticket to the press box. Do it.
Right.
I would love it.
I mean, the best plays
Put me
Latrell
on
called.
the sideline because I'll be the get back guy. I'll get his ass back all the way to the sideline,
So-
to the wall.
So
And-
Latrell called the great plays where you get the roughing the passer and the face mask. We should call more of those.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Those are 15-yarders. But no, there was a point in the fourth quarter when we had the lights out, so you could barely see it. But it's Venables and Schmidt are talking outside the huddle. And I don't know what they're talking. Like, why are you talking to your strength and conditioning coach? Like, what is that conversation that he's giving you in strategy, and you're not making
That
the
scares
play?
me if he's the strategy guy because I just don't think he's competent to be that guy
Right.
and have that skill set. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But another thing, so we talked about that. Something else that we've harped on, Jay is in particular noticed it and noticed it tonight. So we, again, were lining up to receive punts, and we had a coach telling our guy to move forward. And he showed him one time to line up on the 30-yard line. He caught that 5 yards behind the 30-yard line. Another time, I think he had to move 15 yards back. We have a coach who obviously has not seen how far this punter can punt and is telling him to get closer, so he's running backwards to field punts. I don't understand that. And I don't understand it to the
fielded a
degree that
punt
he's
where we
going.
fell down again tonight.
Yeah, there is something just inherently bad about where we're just lining up to receive punts. Again, that's a coaching error. That's something that you cannot do. And what's very confusing about all of this is, in addition to coaching errors in terms of the clock management, what's going on the punt returns, etc. Then you have coaching that seems so spot on when it comes to defense. Are they that insular? Are they that confused by what's going on? I don't understand. We're watching the replay, and they're showing it was a lateral. That was a lateral that Jackson Arnold threw. It should have been throwing that ball.
Well, if you watched the play before where we got the fumble, the strip sack, and recovered it on the 5, and then Arnold comes in and fake pitches it to Barnes and then takes it up the middle and fumbles it. If he pitches that to Barnes,
Oh, yeah.
literally
So it goes back to what
it's a wide receiver against a corner, and that's all Barnes has.
Yeah.
He hits, it's a touchdown.
It's
But it's a play call. That's not like a read option or
right.
anything.
No, it's a play call.
That's a fake pitch and go up the middle into a pile of the probably 2 of the best defensive tackles in the league, and you're fumbling the ball.
It is.
It's sickening to see.
It is
on the
just
replay.
absolutely sickening to see. And as you watch the replay, that's where, if it's coming across that clearly to us, you know it is to them. They're going to be watching this game film very quickly here on Sunday, which is Sunday right now.
I thought Heupel got conservative too in the second half.
I thought
They
he
had
did
a
too.
lot of run up the middle.
Not surprising, actually.
Well, I mean, they were up 22-3 or whatever at the
well,
one
like,
point.
well, like Jay said, they're
think
totally disrespecting our offense.
But I think that's what they wanted to do.
It's smart
honestly,
because you give if you're.
but you're not.
giving us
It's,
the
you're not.
ball,
Your
they're not doing anything with
quarterback's not going to mess up
Yeah.
Right.
because he has a propensity to mess up. He's not. He's still a young quarterback too.
Yeah.
And he wasn't baited into making a lot of tough throws at all. He made some good throws,
Yep.
but nothing that he had to really think about. And we tried to disguise something that was odd for him. And again, like you said, they weren't afraid of our offense.
Yeah, I think they told him, because there was a couple times where he scrambled out, was looking for a play, then we tackled him. And I think they probably told him, eat the ball because we can punt it because they're not going to move the ball on our defense. They suck so bad that that's what we're going to do.
And they nailed it.
And they nailed it.
Well, and then we actually did started to move it,
Right.
You know, in
After the quarterback
desperation
change.
after the quarterback change. Where do we go from here, guys? So we've got an Auburn game. No, we don't. We're not going to go to Auburn. We're selling our tickets. We're not going to travel to see, unfortunately, the team play at Auburn.
Well, I think we can go from there. Talking about fans and traveling, I think the fans did a unbelievable job of still cheering
Yes.
well into the fourth quarter. They were loud well into the fourth quarter, hoping that the team would come back and cheering on the defense. And they probably lasted longer than I think they,
Should have.
maybe should have.
Should have.
Right.
Should have.
And that's where I get a little perturbed throughout this week with, fans better show up and all this stuff. For me, and I had this conversation earlier this week with Christian, this team, especially offensively, has not given me a reason to cheer for all 4 quarters.
Right.
And I don't want to be hyped up and cheering in the fourth quarter against Houston when we're up by 3 points because we look bad. Like, give me something.
We shouldn't have to.
Give me something to get excited about. Go blow a team like Tennessee out of the water. And that's the thing. Our MO of blowing teams out, especially good and even medium teams, is gone. And everyone wants to refer back to the 2008 jump around game against Texas Tech. I got hyped because that team was hype worthy. And I feel like that team could have went toe to toe with anybody in the country, and we have a shot, a good shot.
And we did.
And we did. And I don't want, it does not excite me as much right now with this team. And therefore, I don't want to get as excited and cheer as loud all the time, all game, because I know I'm about to be in for a stressful experience.
Well, here's the deal, and I think that is, like you say, Mike, that is, there can be nothing but praise for the fans. For
Absolutely.
showing up tonight, cheering as loud as they did. It was amazing. There's a lot to talk about fandom tonight.
We got let down.
We got let down.
So the
And here's-
decibel on my watch now might have been picking up me some, but it was like one times it was 117. I mean, it was
They said it was.
120.
They said it was the highest decibel rating they've read since like 2022 at an LSU game.
Yeah.
so we were up there.
117 was.
Well,
as
my
high as it
watch
got.
was spot on.
Spot on.
You know, I
That's
can't,
what ESPN
Way to go,
reported it.
Apple.
right.
Holly Red.
So
But
that's the
the-
deal.
the-
So the fans were great. The fans cheered. Here's the deal about Oklahoma, and it goes back to everything we've been criticizing about this stuff. I do not need to be told when to cheer.
No.
And by God, you got to earn it. I don't care if you're at Kent State or you're at Oklahoma or Alabama or wherever. Hey, you don't deserve shit. You deserve what you earn, and you need to earn it if you want fans to cheer for you. Don't tell me, especially in this age of NIL, that I am supposed to do jack shit, because I'm not.
So
I'm here to cheer when you are giving
Worthy.
me something to cheer for,
Yeah.
and when it's something that is, I feel like I can make a difference.
And that's why
right?
it's easy to cheer for the defense.
So, but see, I even go a little bit further. Don't gripe at me that I'm critical of your decisions, that I'm, in the stands questioning you, or you're on message boards questioning the coaches, and then demand that I just show up and be happy and cheer.
Right.
Like, if you're going to want me there and you're going to want me invested to cheer, you better take it when you really fail, and I'm going to hold you accountable for those failures.
Right.
And the
you
coaches
can't have it both ways.
As much as you want to say Jackson Arnold didn't put out, he didn't show out tonight. He threw behind some guys, maybe made some mistakes. He's still a kid learning how to play at a collegiate level. You guys are the grown men professionals who are, no matter what NIL they're getting, you're getting more than that.
You're very, very well compensated.
You're well compensated, and you're the ones who's supposed to shepherd him into being the quarterback you think he can be, and develop him the way it should be. So we can be critical of you. We're not all full Mike Gundy, I'm a man, but it is sort of true.
Yeah.
You are the men in that room. These are kids, and you have to be there helping them out, putting them in places to be successful. And the coaches aren't putting people in places to be successful.
It's the thing that we criticized 2 years ago when we played Texas, and we were so frustrated about that situation, and we were saying and yelling, screaming in the stands, we're mad at those coaches for putting these players in a position to be embarrassed. And whether they're just losing a game, which was a relatively tight game tonight against a really good opponent, or you're not performing against a Houston that you should be performing better against, we want you to do well. We're here to support you, but we're also here to see that you're making good decisions, and we're going to hold you accountable to those. And if anything, we're defending those players to say you need to put those players in a position to win, just like you say, Mike.
Right.
It's all of it comes as a package, and the entitlement really bothers me with that. And the other thing that bothers me is the tone deafness of our entire surrounding program of the lights and the flash and the camera. You've got to have some understanding of what we're doing when we're doing it. One of the things that really bothered me tonight, and I understand you've got a script, and I understand you're trying to keep it hyped up, but you've got to have a little bit of what is the right moment for this moment. What is the right atmosphere I want to build right now?
There's enough 3.5-minute TV timeouts to do that crap.
Yeah.
Where you should not be doing it between plays.
So I'm
And
gonna
here's
say,
the deal. So you got a true freshman quarterback, and you're trying to talk to him, and you're turning the lights out, and you're flashing strobe lights at us. They may want to just talk to him and have a conversation. Right. It's one thing that I can't converse with the person next to me. It's a whole other thing that they may not be able to talk on the field because you're doing lights, camera, action like it's a show.
So
this ain't Vegas, baby.
There's three things that as a football fan, that I am extremely sort of livid about. One is after we get a first down and we're trying to call the next play, our band does not need to be playing as we're trying to get the play.
They're in a band off. Again, they're
right.
trying to do a band off.
I don't care what you're doing. Stop playing bands. You're just adding noise to get the play in. So that's one that I think was just totally ridiculous.
It's all the time.
Two, when we score and we know we have to go for two, we kill the lights. And we're down there talking as the coach is trying to call the play. It's not like we're just running the extra point team on. We're going to call the play, leave the lights on. Yep. Like, understand the situation. But then to top it off, after we get the first two, before they, end the flags on the field, one of the roughneck coordinators, a woman, is out there yelling at the Tennessee players to get off the fields because they're going to run the wagon
that was
out.
Insane.
And she is not paying attention that there's two flags on the play. The game is going on.
She was in the middle of the field.
She's in the middle of the field.
Tennessee player laying on the field with his helmet off.
Yeah.
Right, which should be a 15-yard penalty. Mm-hmm. She is on the field during play.
She looked like an idiot.
I thought the same thing when the what play was it that Arnold, or no, it was Hawkins lost the ball, and what happened? They ran up the sideline for a touchdown. They got called back on
Hawkins.
face
It
mask.
was incomplete pass,
incomplete pass.
but that's where they called hands.
Roughing the passer.
Roughing the passer because they hit him in the
And
head.
there's 6 Tennessee coaches on the field.
Right.
As the Tennessee players go into the other end zone with
Right.
the ball, the clock is stopped at 1:55. It was right after the 2-minute warning.
Yep.
And there's 5 or 6 Tennessee coaches on the field as the play is kind of still going.
So they
kinda
kill
not
the
still going.
kill the clock.
Yeah.
They let that happen. They let the player
the
run
refs
it to the
are-
end zone.
Yeah.
They call it a touchdown.
Yeah.
They called it a touchdown on the field.
When they ruled it an incomplete
And then they
pass.
ruled it incomplete.
So this is how it
It
happened.
was crazy.
This is how it happened. Because there was a whistle blown, and it was the line judge on that side. He blew his whistle, which stops the clock, because he has the pat.
Yeah.
Because when they met, he is telling them, I blew it, and it stopped. And he's patting his side to tell them that's why the clock's at 1:55. So it was 1:59 when we snapped it, because the 2-minute warning.
Right.
We come out and snap at 1:59, hands to the head, roughing the passer, incomplete pass. He blew it and stopped it. But that he didn't at that moment tell them, hey, I've done this.
Yeah, he's not waving his hands.
He's
or
not
anything.
waving his arms
He's
or
just
anything.
watching it happen.
He
They
just
start-
watches it
ref
happen.
starts running down the other end
Right.
of the field thinking it's a live ball going back for a touchdown the other way.
It was
Inspiring
poor.
controversy.
But the whistle was blown. Regardless if
Yeah.
it was inadvertent or not, the play is dead. Similar to
The
Vernon
first
Thompson,
drive.
Yeah.
the first drive.
Yeah.
There's no reason
It's
you're
poor
not waving
officiating.
your arms and telling it's over.
right.
But it's funny
And it's the fourth
because
game of year for those refs too.
Because at the end of the game, right before we score, Venables is just laying in to the line judge on his side that called that earlier. And I think, and it was on Barnes' touchdown because you can clearly see Barnes is in the end zone, and then they let them all pile
Yeah.
on. And I think he was yelling at that line judge, call the touchdown. You can see it.
They
Right.
waited forever to call that.
You
They
know?
waited at least 25 seconds.
And
to
on the
call
replay, his entire half of his,
His
body
torso.
is laying.
Right.
His torso's in the
Right.
end
with
zone.
the ball is laying over the end zone when they're pulling people out of the pile
And
before they finally call it a touchdown.
And this goes to something I always hate about college football and any football, really. I never understand. There's a big pile up in the middle. The linemen run in, the line judges run in from the side, look in the pile, and then call the touchdown. Like, really? You know something in there that you didn't know when you were
you watched
standing
the play.
far away watching it
Right.
live? Like, you don't know what went on in there.
No.
You're just making it up, but we all live
Yeah,
with
he's
that.
like rolling on the ground,
Right.
scooting forward
Yeah.
for a touchdown.
But we just live with this that, that seems
with 6
legit.
guys laying on him.
Well, there's a lot of things frustrating, and we could get to sensors in the ball and all kinds of things they could be doing to improve it. But come back to this game, I saw many instances of us not being SEC ready when it comes to our offense, when it comes to our coaching, when it comes to our program, when it comes to our stadium. The ridiculous getting in the stadium, the water went out in the entire upper deck. We had no bathrooms and no concessions in the upper deck because the water went out. That's not SEC ready.
For a first SEC game.
We talk about, for the first SEC game, we talk about the imitation.
95-degree game, and there's no water.
And we're
after halftime.
And we're talking about, well, we've seen it before, and if you put these things together, it looks like it. The drone show was impressive and very good. I thought that was wonderful, well executed. Most of the light show, well executed. But you need to be at a higher level. Everything needs to be better, guys, and it's just not there. It's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan to put up with all of that. And it goes from everything we're seeing on the field to everything we're experiencing in the stands. It needs to be better. It needs to be a lot better to be SEC ready or whatever you want to call it. It needs to be better. And we got a long way to go. We look at these Tennessee fans who traveled very well, very impressive. If we're going to get to that point, we're going to have to up our game in a lot of different ways. And it's not by imitation. It's not by looking at what we've seen before and saying, oh, we can do something like that. Some cargo cult kind of let's imitate and therefore it must be correct. That's not what it takes. You got to figure out what it really is and go and actually do it. And that's a problem, and it worries me that we can't get to that point, or we're not willing to put the resources in to get to that point.
But you're telling me giving people pom-poms so when they shake them in front of me, I can't see the field's a bad idea?
But not only that, you give them red pom-poms to blend in with all the shirts, and you can't even see them on TV.
Yeah, a
Right.
white pom-pom
Give
would
them
make
white,
sense.
maybe. It would make a lot more sense.
That was bad. There was a lot of things that were bad. And talk about SEC ready, though. When I was walking out or walking back with some Tennessee fans, and they were really nice, and we were talking, I was jokingly saying, it's like we said we need to be SEC ready, and we only thought that meant the defense. And we made our defense really good, but we forgot, hey, wait, we have to focus in on the offense. But I feel like that's a little bit of the game day experience, too. We'll get a drone show, we'll get these lights that can flash on and off, but not realizing, like, the people are setting the stands. They want drinks. They want access to restrooms. I mean, they run out of water. They're locking bathroom doors. And then they're just telling you, these are closed. It's like, really?
You sit in the north end zone, you don't have those problems.
You have a piss trough downstairs. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I just don't go downstairs once the game starts because I'm not a fan.
You just go in your seat or something. I don't know.
He wears a Depends.
Right.
I don't know. It's frustrating, and it worries me, actually, because we have to get ready to a point where we're actually at a level of excellence across the board. And we're not there, guys. We're not there when we look at this team.
But this is what I would say. This is where you're fumbling the ball and you don't realize you're fumbling it. There are a lot of Tennessee fans who came, one, because they thought they were going to win big and it's an exciting time for them. But there's fans who are going to come to your stadium because we're going to play Oklahoma. I want to go to Norman one time. They're going to come. They're going to say, I checked that off the box. It was a horrible experience. I'm never going back, kind of deal, which is then
you
going to hurt
talked to
you.
some, Jay. Did they have anything to share?
Yeah, basically just what we're saying. They said it was a little ridiculous to get in. A little bit too much like cattle and with only 2 open gates. And
How does that happen still?
I don't know. And again,
Staffing.
what is there to say about the bathrooms? That's just ridiculous.
Pathetic. It's
They
pathetic.
want 10,000 people on the west side upper deck to
Well,
get on an elevator.
In relation, when we went to Knoxville, that was the worst bathroom situation.
It was. Knoxville was
Stadium
really
I've ever
bad.
been to.
Knoxville was
in the,
into the
in the
Cotton Bowl?
upper deck. Yeah, it's worse than the Cotton Bowl in the upper deck of Tennessee. Because
The upper deck in
I went
Tennessee
at
is
halftime
insane.
to use the restroom.
It is
and-
Were there
crazy.
crickets?
And Josh,
Crazy experience.
and it took us.
There was no
literally-
cricket
We
infestation.
went down when halftime started, and down from the upper level seats just to the bathrooms in the upper level, and it took us the entire time. We almost missed kickoff of the second half, which is 20 minutes in between.
Yeah.
Just to walk.
Yeah.
I don't know, 500 feet to go to the restroom because there was like 4 troughs in this one bathroom, and there were 7,000 men trying to go into these four troughs in 20 minutes. It was way worse than an OU game.
I wore a catheter for that game, actually.
I don't
Thank
know
goodness.
honestly, they've got 20,000 more fans, and I don't want to use that as an excuse. I want to be better than all of that. I want it to be better than all that. If we're going to call it the Palace on the Prairie, it needs to be not a palace from the 1400s. It needs to be really, really good.
No, it is a palace because it's one section that's reserved
true.
for the kings.
The North
That
End Zone.
The
that-
royalty has it
that
all.
The royalty gets the nice bathrooms. The new section gets the nice bathrooms. They're going to make everything bad until they get that new
And
freaking
it's not just
press
that;
box.
it's the team itself. It's everything.
Yeah.
We have got to get out of the imitation game and into the actual excellence game.
This goes back.
We've got to
though-
get better.
This goes back to years and years ago, which predates some of the people on the pod. But when we built the East Upper Deck, there was the thinking of this is going to be great. We're going to have new restrooms. That's the trough side. There's all going to be these updates. And no, they didn't do any of that. They just built this upper deck with some supports, and they didn't do anything on the bottom level.
On the concourse.
On the concourse level. And
Aside from some bending, there's some concessions, but
But back then there wasn't. You used to go through
Yeah.
the outer wall and you went in and there was the Taco Mayo. By the student section, there was the Taco Mayo and the pizza. And the point is, they've never had this forward thought that this is a old stadium. You know, they keep on showing on the Jumbotron, pushing the old press box over. And it's kind of, are you telling me that's what we should be doing now? It's like, let's get rid of that part of it.
I didn't understand that either. Why
Why
kept
they showed
showing
that
that?
50
It's on loop.
times.
So
Or maybe they were just saying, this is how your offense looks horrible.
Let's finish by talking about the team and what we think could happen. So, it is literally true that everything's still in front of us. We could, if we were to win a considerable number of games, not all of them, we can make the playoff.
So
we could get better and win and win enough to get into the
We've got to win 7 more.
we got to win 7 more games, and I don't know where it's going to come from, but it could happen, right? And so to a degree, we hope the team is looking forward and thinking that way. I hope the team isn't just packing it in, checking out, and saying it's done. They need to be thinking too.
Hawkins isn't.
There's a chance, and they got to be thinking about strategically what can we do to win. But they need to be thinking about it in terms of you go to war with the army you've got, not the army you want to have. And we've got a different army than we thought we were going to enter this season with. So we got to make some drastic changes if we're going to be competitive in all but one of the games where I'm sure at Maine, I think this crew of 8 people, 9 people, we could win the game against Maine.
We could.
That's
So,
the only one.
I don't. But as bad as our schedule is from being tough, it's good for if we somehow piece it together. It lines up where you get in with definitely 10-2. You probably make top 12.
Oh, 10-2, it's a guaranteed you're in the top 12.
Right, and at 9-3, depending on
Who you
what
lose.
There's a
who
good
you
chance.
lose to and who you beat and where you beat them, there's a good chance too that you have a chance.
If you
it lines
can
up,
do
you
that.
have to get better. The other thing about tonight, and we were talking about in the walk back with the younger boys, we were saying they were asking where we think we'd be in the polls. At 25-15, the way it ended up, and Hawkins looking good, you literally might not fall but one spot
Yeah,
in the poll.
I think we're at 18.
I mean,
18
but I'm saying it's better that we lost 25-15 as
Right,
sad as it
for sure.
than to lose 45-6 and Hawkins comes in. And this goes back to something we talked about before the pod, and it's the same thing that happened as OU fans in the 90s and probably Nebraska fans at some point, is you wanted your team to win back then, but you didn't want your coach to win some big game that might save his job.
Right.
And it's good that Jackson Arnold struggled mightily, that we don't score from the 5 and make a close game. Because then there would be, even no matter what Venables said, then there might be a thinking, we'll stick with Jackson Arnold. I think it's clear you don't stick with Jackson Arnold. And I think it's clear from the people who matter in the voting who are watching it will say, well, they didn't know Michael Hawkins was their quarterback at that time. They were still playing that Jackson Arnold guy, and he's so bad that now they're good. So you might not be hurt as bad losing 25-15 in a close game where your backup came in and looked good.
Well,
that's
Kirk
it.
Herbstreit gave Michael Hawkins his full endorsement on the cast
Right.
tonight.
So that's telling, and that was a great point that Max made about Jackson Arnold in particular, about the fact that it was so bad that it should be clear that you're making a change, and maybe it's bad enough that Brent Venables knows he needs to either make his coaches make changes or be prepared to make changes.
it for him.
Right.
So one way or the other, there's hope. There's
They
a
just
homer's
have to
hope that it
accept
could get there.
That the offense isn't going to be this 40-point scoring machine that they all think it was going to be or hope it to be. And just build the rest of this offense around the defense that we have.
With this defense, if you can figure out how to get 30 a game, you're gonna win. You're gonna win a lot of games.
It again is
I
the
don't know that
exact
you need
opposite.
30 a game.
That's probably true. It's exactly
25 to
opposite of
30
what
a
we,
game.
what we said. We always said if we could hold them to X number of points, we'll win the game. If we can score X number of points, we're going to win the game. And that's every game going forward.
Every game.
Every game. We just showed against Tennessee what we can do. If we can just score when we should score, we can win any game on our schedule. We absolutely could lose almost any game on our schedule
If we can't figure out how to
if we can't
score.
figure it out. If we can't,
Right.
so that's the key.
But
We got to figure it
well,
out.
Part of it offensively is just scrap, for the most part, the hurry up offense.
Yes.
We won't.
And just roll with it.
We won't.
Unless it's clicking and you really have a mismatch that you're just going to continually exploit down the field, just prepare yourself to win this game 24-17.
And
So-
possess the ball and control the game.
The defense is going to give you field position.
So
The
to end
defense
it-
is going to give you the ball 2 or 3 extra possessions.
So to end it, what do we think in terms of the probability of them actually doing what they need to do, what we're talking about, and salvaging this season in a fashion that gets us competitive to be in the playoff? Not necessarily in the playoff, but actually competing for it. I think we competed for a playoff spot tonight, as bad as it was with a 25-15 loss. do we think that we're there? Do we think there's a chance?
So I'll say the most promising thing that happened was in crunch time. We were playing two freshman cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Eli Bowen and
Jacoby Johnson.
Jacoby Johnson. I mean, I think the coaches realized in the third quarter we need to play the young guys. The same way with the receivers at the end, the guys you saw. Now, granted, I think there's a little bit of the catcher for the relief pitcher comes in because he knows what that pitcher throws. I think there's some with the wide receivers is they think Hawkins has better chemistry with the guys they're playing. But I do think they were playing guys who were hungry and looked like they wanted to play. And on the defense side, I mean, the game was still, we had a chance, and we're putting Eli Bowen in there to play one-on-one against a guy running go routes every time.
So do you have hope? Do you have more than hope? Do you have an expectation, some optimism that they will get there?
Yes.
Jay?
No.
Connor?
yes.
Lucas?
Nope.
I'll say
Yes, but I'm not confident in my yes.
I like that. I like yes, but I'm not confident in my
I think
yes.
we took a step in the right direction tonight by making the change at quarterback.
So let me ask you a
But
question.
my no, though, is still what comes down to what your offense has to have. It has to have a functioning offensive line.
Yeah.
So let me ask
That's why it's a no for me.
Okay, so for the two no's, primarily, who do you think made the call to put Hawkins in? Do you think it's Venables or you think it's Luttrell?
I think it's Venables.
I think it's been
Venables 100%.
That's what I think is. I think it's Venables as well. That's why I have more confidence, because the Possums are really disagreeing with me.
They're mad.
They're
They're
mad.
angry. Everybody's angry here in
We're
Norman.
looking for some little Debbies, I think.
Right. They were. But my point is, I do think Venables got on the radio and said,
This ain't
hey,
it. This
my
ain't working.
defense is pissed because they're getting you the ball and you have a quarterback out there where the play that was the lateral pass, when he throws it.
That was his last play.
But I think Venables gets on the radio and says, wait, did he just throw that from the opposite hash across the field and skip it to the guy that we were running the screen to? Like, what are you doing? And that's when Venables, I think, went after Luttrell, like, we got to put in Hawkins.
Well,
so that gives me confidence.
That would be my confidence if it's Venables making that call. I guess I should be confident if it's Luttrell, but if it's Luttrell, I feel like he's like, well, I've got to do this to save my job. Whereas Venables is, we've got to do this to save the season. So my confidence would be if it's Venables because he's trying to save the season and get us in the right direction. I don't know. All I do know is the thing that never lets me down is Little Debbie's. I'm going to have a Star Crunch tonight. I hope everybody else has a Star Crunch tonight.
I'm going
and
to
I hope it just
snort a Star Crunch tonight.
I tell you what, and what are those little Nutter Butter things, baby? Those just hit the spot. Thank you to Little
Shelby likes
Debbie.
those too.
And guys, I don't know. We're going to be back with a midweek pod, and it's going to be a lot more of this fire and brimstone. Hopefully, we're back with a post game pod after the Auburn game that's saying, "Wow, they're turning it around, and this is really good. We're in good shape." I don't know.
If there's a team to do it against, it's Auburn.
Absolutely so. That's a get right game for sure. So until next time, Boomer.
Sooner.